Great. Welcome everybody to the Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency regular board meeting for August 27th, 2026. Roll call, James Gordon here, Donna Egan.
Present.
Erica Brown.
Here.
Mike Baden.
Here.
Chris Hurlbert.
I'm here.
Mark Ryder.
Here.
Timothy DeGraff.
Here.
Angelina Brandt.
Here.
Tim Wiederman.
Here.
Nancy Lamb.
Here.
And Kevin is. Okay, let's rise to the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
First order of comment is, or first order of business is public comment. Does someone want to speak for the board of directors?
Yes,
Yes, okay, could you please state your name for the record, please?
my name is John Lamella. I operate along with my father, my cousins, a C&D transfer station, a commercial and residential hauling service, and a roll-off service based in the southeast corner of this county. And I'm proud to say that of the top four haulers in terms of revenue for this agency, we are the only ones that are based in New York, let alone based in the county. And I say that because I want to know who's speaking. I'm here to speak today because something concerned me with the rhetoric of last month while you guys were reviewing tonnage reports and noticed the C&D tonnage was missing. You were missing projections over the course of year to date. And instead of chalking it up to maybe the worst winter we had in about 5 years, or perhaps the increase in the interest rates put a pause on construction, or perhaps some of your facilities have kind of increased the amount of times they reject loads. You guys said that it was because of a local facility is charging $135 a ton, where you guys are about $167 a ton. If you include the fuel surcharge, it's $167 to $38 per ton. So the reaction to that wasn't to compete, even though you have all the advantages. You have a captive market with MSW. You have you just got a recent bond increase to $60 million. You have then you have the ability to have municipal grants that us in the private sector have no access to. Instead of saying let's compete on price despite those advantages, you say maybe we should mandate C&D to power facilities. That was the reaction, which not only would just put my 70-year-old company out of business, it would trickle down to the consumer, to all the contractors, and pretty much all the people who build this county and this county relies on for its local economy. But this is not me theorizing. We could just look at what happened with MSW and flow control of MSW, because right now we could go to a myriad of places in about 3 different counties that charge anywhere between $130 and $140 a ton. You guys are still at $167. And when we see who this lands on, because we've been told by a lot of people in this board since 2012, just raise your prices. Just raise your prices on your customers. But that's convenient because you guys don't hear the AARP fixed income, mostly senior citizens who say, I can't afford this $3 to $4 increase on my garbage service per month. They're already tapped out. So I want to, how serious was this consideration? Because I believe that the price discipline will stay consistent if you were to mandate another revenue stream to yourself. I think the incentive to keep rates low will shrink as you mandate more tons to yourself, as we watched it vanish with municipal waste. And this is just based on your own numbers, and we'll probably see them later on this evening. Right now, despite falling tonnage, you're over 6% on revenue. And although you're negative 17% year to date on the C&D tonnage, it seems like the only stream missing is the one that people are allowed to choose. And if it's actually a case where it's your pricing that's the problem, not the fact that there are other options that exist. And it begs the question, what is this funding? Because we see, I mean, don't get me wrong, your hazardous waste days are perfect. I think the community loves them. They add so much value. But when we see the main priorities of a widely adopted zero waste initiative, then on the other side, put or pay contract, it doesn't seem like it makes sense. I think you cannot be paid to reduce waste and contractually obligated to supply it. So my question isn't whether this agency is greedy or poorly managed. It's whether the plan is indefinitely to find the next captive stream and raise its rate. Because eventually they'll run out of people who can say no. And if that's your goal, please admit it and put it in writing. But I would like to close on the word accountability because I also heard that in the last meeting. And it was aimed at the haulers, and I'll take that seriously if this board will. Because we answer to every morning to customers who could walk away while meeting every DOT and DEC standard as it evolves. I want to ask, where's the accountability to the contractors and homeowners this raises prices on? To the 2012 promise that everyone pays the same price, because right now municipalities pay a different price than the commercial rate. Where is the accountability to the small businesses you'll strain with the negative impact it'll have on our local markets? Or to the environment, when you force companies to needlessly expel hundreds of tons of emissions per year solely to run material to your facilities? Not to mention the extra trucks, the extra trucking for single streams, so you guys no longer take that anymore. Where's the accountability when this board uses a captive market to fund contradicting missions? And instead of having every advantage to compete on price, where's the accountability when you ask to mandate away the competition? Demand accountability, as you should, but just be ready to answer for your own. I'm not here to blindly, criticize the UCRRA and out of nowhere. I'm here to warn about the failing relationship between the UCRRA and the private sector, which provides around 95% of your revenue. The expansion of C&D into flow control will erode any little amount of trust the private sector has left for this authority. But I'll end on a positive note. This is fixable. The private sector is a willing, untapped resource that should be seen as a partner as long as mutual accountability is a priority. The private sector views success and accountability as logistic efficiency, price, and dependability for the individual customer who has the option to leave, all while meeting the ever-evolving regulatory standards of DEC as lead agency. So what does accountability look like for the UCRRA? And I'm happy to speak with any of you privately. You guys have been open and able to talk to me about everything that you guys provide. And we want to make sure that we provide a value to you guys as well. So I hope that we can maintain a good working relationship with the board here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing this to our attention. Appreciate it. We try and listen to the public. I think we do a pretty good job. And you just made a very interesting, public comment. I appreciate it. I know the board appreciates it.
Yeah, and I've been coming most meetings of the past 4 meetings just to be a learning participant. I want to make sure that my company and the board could work well together.
Thank you. Other public comment? Going once? Twice, 3 times? Okay, thank you. And thank you again. Approval of the agenda for August 27th. Does the board have, any on the board have any changes or suggestions they'd like to add to the agenda? It's presented that agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Yes.
Second.
All right. All in favor of accepting the agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. All right, approval of the minutes of July 23rd, 2026. the regular board minutes. I've looked at them and thought they were fine, but I may have missed something. Anyone have anything they want to add or?
Motion.
Motion. I'll make a motion that we review the meeting minutes.
Okay, all right, second, please.
Second.
Okay, all right, so all in favor? Aye.
Well,
Discussion.
no,
Okay.
discussion. So I do have one item.
Okay, no, I don't know, that's why,
I have two small items, but, so we do have on here, Jim, a remote vote, and a remote vote is not to be recorded in the meeting minutes. It wasn't, you
I said didn't vote. Yeah.
because you can't vote because
Right.
you weren't here. So that has to be
Right.
revised.
Oh, I didn't.
I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
see
it's
that.
not a,
It's
So
not
you
meant
can't
to
vote.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's just,
three in favor, 0 opposed, and then just 2, it's a note, so she only
But it
recorded
says
3
one.
votes.
One.
One remote, yeah, one remote,
Person.
absent. You see, three in favor,
Says 3-0.
0 opposed, 1 absent, 1 remote, which is just
Okay.
accounting for. And I can understand
Yeah,
why
I
it's
get-
confusing.
Yeah, I mean, that.
That's when I looked
So
at
we're
it.
clear that
Yeah.
the remote votes don't count.
Right,
The other thing, it's just something I brought up in the past, so it's just the sensitivity thing. When they do the MSW tonnage and recycling reports, we're always targeting MSW, right? So we're 73 tons below target, so we're not targeting that, we're below the budget. And so I think that's just a mindset that we need to change going forward.
do you have a suggestion for a better
Budget,
term?
yeah, budget. But we didn't make a budget, but we're not targeting certain. That's it.
Any other comments on the minutes of July 23rd? I'll accept the motion. We have the motion, so I guess to accept these minutes. Thank you. As amended. There was no amendments.
It was just a comment.
Okay.
That's how it was worded in the July meeting.
Yeah, there's no, yeah. All right, anyway, who?
We voting?
Yeah. everyone in favor of-
Yeah, so-
I keep tripping over the words. I figured I just vote, right? Can't vote for it.
So you took the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Nobody said anything.
Anybody opposed? Sorry. Great, okay, cool. All right, communications and announcement, Zero Waste Committee meeting is scheduled for September 10th, 2026 at 5 PM. And that's here, right? That's here. Okay. Public hearing on the 2027 draft agency budget for September 24th is set for September 24th, 2026 at 6 PM. Okay. And the regular board meeting is also scheduled for September 24th, 2026 at 6:10 PM or immediately after the public hearing on the draft agency budget. Budget workshop. Right, so on we go with that.
Okay, so I'm gonna begin with the presentation of the 2027 draft budget and then kick it over to Tim. So right off the front, no increase in tipping fees for either MSW or construction and demolition debris. There is a $2 increase in sludge, basically biosolids, to offset the direct cost. So it's basically we're paying out 152 to Denali and we're bringing in 152. And then we're proposing eliminating the tipping fee for food waste. Just reminder, this is our flows. So we get about 99% of MSW because of flow control. Out of the 104,000 tons generated, and this was in 2024, we received 35,000, and there was another third of that was recycled. So out of the C&D that's disposed of at a landfill or goes to a transfer station, we receive about half, but 35% generated. Regulated recyclables, we receive about 16%. Source separated organics, 41%. Biosolids, 92%. And then hazard or other waste, which includes HHW and other things, we receive about 11%. Go ahead. Since our 2025 budget, this was our projected tonnage coming in. So it was 142,000, roughly 800. For the 2027 budget, we are projecting 102,000 of MSW and 27,400. You'll see that a large portion of the decrease as a percentage is in the C&D area, 23% less C&D than we were projecting in 25, while only seeing a decrease in 4% of the MSW. So as was stated in public comment, 95% of our agency budget comes from fees related to incoming waste. Tipping fee increases are driving reduction in volumes of incoming waste and corresponding to decreasing revenue, as well as some minor environmental factors, could be weather related and other things, but we're not seeing generation down too much. There's still building happening. There's still waste, C&D and other waste being generated. When we increase the tipping fee, we risk further decrease in C&D volume and revenue. Transportation disposal costs related and costs related to handling waste are outside of our direct control. So our options are find new sources of revenue or cut discretionary costs. And from there, I will kick it over to Tim DeGraff.
Yeah, so just as a reminder as to how I put our budget together every year. I like to have 6 months of that. There's been times where I put it together after only 5 months. But 6 months is pretty helpful for trending purposes, as we discuss every month. So the first thing I go to is always volume, because the majority of our revenues and our expenses, are variable costs based on tonnages. With that being said, as Mark already explained, how we encompass the total amount of budgeted tonnages, it ultimately led us to total revenues. And just also, I always like to stress every year that our budget is much more like a business's budget, and that this is a forecast. These are expectations based on many variables. We don't set a tax levy here, and we're not appropriating expenses or anything like that. So total revenues came in around 24 million, or an increase of 411,000 from the prior year's budget. Total expenditures were 23 million, and this is operating of 23 million, or an increase of approximately 402,000. The difference between those two relates to our capital outlay, which we look at our operating costs as well. That way we don't have to bond or borrow money. And that decreased $40,000 to 805,000. So we do have a budgeted surplus of 50,132. In years past, we've always tried, we tried to zero it out, but sometimes, sometimes we're a little less, sometimes we're a little higher. We also don't know items like pension rates, insurance renewal rates, we won't have until, within the next month, 6 weeks. So if there's anything material that changes between now and October, that bottom line number can also change. So individually, some of the highlights for revenues and expenses I'll go over. Compost revenues, we have had some changes discussed here. As we just talked about every month, we're down on food waste volume coming in. That may change. A lot of the numbers that we did, I always try to stay conservative. So I would not expect us to go right back up to 5,000 tons of food waste coming in again. I don't think that would be appropriate or realistic. So we kept it at 2,500 tons, which is what we're expecting this year, unless there's some type of changes. But as part of that, we've decided to lower food waste tipping fees from $20 a ton down to 0, hoping, that will incentivize, more food waste coming in. Also, our compost bulk sales is really based on supply and demand, economic factors. So since we're low on supply and we do have high demand, we decided to increase that $10 a ton from 40 up to 50 for 2027. Town pool charges, we have not increased since 2023. So there's been a number of rising costs since 2023. So we're asking for an extra $5 a pull. That's not a major impact across the board to the towns. Fuel surcharge, this is tough. Some of the items like our recycling markets or fuel, I did try to do a lot of research on the expectations on where those markets are going. Not just for the end of this year, but for next year as well. I always try to tie in our fuel surcharge and fuel replenishment related program expenses as well for the long haulers and try to match them up so that if there's any increases or decreases, it's hopefully a net effect. They won't line up exactly because our fuel surcharge is calculated, you know, for instance, I would calculate August and apply to September, whereas we're actually laying out the money throughout all of August. So if there's any increase or decreases, there's always that month lag. So we've been hovering around the 11% mark since March, with the expectations that fuel is. Remember, I did the budget. I looked all this up, and literally within the week, you know, there were changes in the world that occurred, and that number automatically shot back up. But sometimes it's a moving target. But when you look at the budget itself, and you look at the numbers, and you look at the detail and the increase is explained. Even though we dropped in volume, my estimates for the rate have increased.
The fuel surcharge ties into the expenses for fuel. So when one goes up, the other goes up.
Correct.
Did you say that, does that float throughout the year or is it floats?
Yeah. We change it every month. We make an adjustment, but there's a lag, so it never matches month to month because our expenses are what we pay that month, and then the calculation applies to the following month.
Do you want to explain what you used to make that change?
Yeah, it's a EIA. I always forget what it stands for, but it's a part of the federal government's Department of Energy. Is how we had originally set that up. The base price back in 2005 when this was created was $1.30. And every 8 cents that increases based off that regional Central Atlantic region diesel fuel price less taxes, we do not include because that makes up a portion of sales prices at the pump. So every 8 cents that it goes up from $1.30 is 0.25% onto the fuel surcharge. So from $1.30, if it goes up to $1.38, it would be 0.25%, and so on.
If it goes down.
Yeah. Recycling service tipping fees. That increase relates to a proposed increase of $10. We currently charge $10 for matches, but we're looking to double that to $20 to cover our cost for the mattress recycling program per unit cost. The increase in sale of recyclables, this is another one that's a moving target. I did the same type of research. There are projections, and we have seen increases, as I've talked about in recent months, where our fiber markets have increased. Still not to levels that are really acceptable. We're talking about hovering between $80 and $100 a ton. But the expectation is that they should be rising up to around $3 at some point next year. And I've seen that in my time here. The low periods tend to offset and get back to, you know, let's say average sales price. There's times where it's gotten, but you know, we've always called scary high because we get some, but that's tends to be how markets work anyway. We've all seen it. So, and then I don't know if Mark wants to add anything to this. Last year we had our reuse expense line. This year, he asked me to add in as part of our, it's built into our grant revenue line. So there's more than just the reuse related revenue in there. But we put 620,000 in for reuse. So we matched it with a grant revenue of 620,000 as well. So the net effect on the budget for reuse is zero. But we do have our regular HSW grants, which is 50% of the expense, our MWRC grant, which is for our recycling education for salaries and benefits and all that, we get 50%, so that's in this number as well. And then I also add in, because the way the DEC pays out, they put a number to each application. And in recent years, they've been paying out about two numbers per month. That has really stepped up recently. To the point where a couple of years ago, some items I was expecting receiving 28, 29 will actually be receiving sometime in the fourth quarter this year.
So just jumping back to adding in that revenue line, again, when we started the repower project and solicited a vendor, to do that project, we were working off of a commitment of $1 million by the county. Jim and I met last week with officials at the county, and that commitment is no longer there. So we have, and for those of you who've been on the board for a few years, and I'll just explain to those who haven't, like we've gone after several grant opportunities for this project and philanthropic dollars. So there's been different levels of like where we believe that we were pretty sure we were getting funds and then it fell through. This county commitment was no different than that, but on the philanthropy side as well. So all we're saying here is we don't want to kill the project. We don't want to pull it out of the budget. We just need to find revenue first before we expend that dollar. Because had we left it on the tipping fee, we would have had no choice but to increase the tipping fee by $5-ish. And again, in 24, the tipping fee was $115. 25, it was $135. In 26, it's $150. So we had to do something in order to stabilize the tipping fee.
So down on the expenditure side, salaries and wages, as we know, we did CBA last year. So our increases are contractual wages and then CPI for staff. Overtime, even though we have raises built in, a lot of our overtime is based on volume at the transfer stations. So as a matter of fact, current year's overtime is projected to be less than last year's, even though we're paying out a higher rate pay per hour. And my expectation is even though we have a decrease in volume, I'm still expecting total overtime to actually decrease. Longevity is an increase because just the way, I mean, if you guys remember the changes to the personnel policy that we made to match the CBA, it's based on how many years someone's worked there. So obviously there's a lot of staff turnover here now. People are reaching those different steps. So it's naturally just inherently just going to increase. Pension costs increase because it's based on wages that are made, but there's also pension rate increases. My current numbers are the actuals for this year, but when you compare it to the budget, I'm expecting that it will increase even more, but I won't have those numbers probably for another week or two. Transport, disposal, fuel replenishment. Any changes on that is just a net effect. I mean, right, I have the formulas, I have the estimates of volume, I know what the contracted prices are, I plug it in and it spits out the numbers. So any changes on that, the underlying reasoning relates to all the contractual effects.
Can I just jump in really quick there? So when we went out to bid on disposal and transportation back in 2024, because basically the landfills didn't want to like do the CPI increase, and that either did the transportation companies that were in the previous bid. Again, we saw like a $29, we went from $29 disposal to $49 per ton at Seneca Meadows. In the budget, there was in the proposal that they submitted, it was for a 2-year contract, so for 25 and 26, and then there was 3 1-year options for us. Both MBI and Seneca Meadows had 5% increases in their bid proposal. We notified them and said, if you want us to extend, we can't extend at these prices. It's too much. The proposals came in at a time where we believe costs were higher. And if you want to hold the 5%, we'll go back out to bid. Negotiations with each, Seneca Meadows said, okay, we'll cut our increase to 3%. Green Ridge with Waste Management declined to reduce, so we're actually not going to be sending them waste next year. Everything's going to go to Seneca minus we may self-transport to Green Ridge for 5,000 tons when MBI is not available to go to Seneca. MBI held their price from 26 to 27, so there's a 0% increase there. Both Seneca and MBI have told us that we're going to need to go back out to bid next year. So we may see another jump like we were, or there may be other options where it may be more stabilized than it was in 24. 24 was a bad year. Seneca didn't have their permit modification. They still don't, but I think it's more likely now than maybe it was back then. They didn't feel like they could commit to a 5-year contract. And so we'll see what happens, but at least next year we're seeing less than increases less than what it would have been in the, had we just extended.
And just to add on to that, the, any of the self-hauling, we save, if you consider the fixed cost of the employee that we're paying for, we save approximately $830 per trip by self-hauling, those loads. The recycling, transport, disposal costs, directly relate to not the mattress recycling program, but as I stated before, those increases, costs are covered by the increase in fees. Sludge costs, sludge tipping fees themselves, I believe on the summary budget is built into the first line, the tipping fee number, but that number equals what our expense line is on the bottom because the same tonnages are used and we're charging the same rate that it's cost. So it works out to the same.
And we only received sludge at New Paltz, and we staffed New Paltz with 3 people, and whether we had biosolids there or not, we would staff it. We have somebody at the scale, and then we have an operator and a laborer. So it doesn't make sense to add in additional operational costs to the sludge. We can just pass on what we pay Denali directly to our sludge customers.
And there's no fuel impact in that. It's an all-inclusive price. Our CLF monitoring, most of those costs in that line relate to leak shed year in and year out. We have seen decreases. I mean, it had work done on both facilities over the past 24 months. We've always felt that, groundwater and precipitation and rain, melt, the melt we that you would have in the marcation time frame always contributed to those numbers. But we have had potential runoff areas down at New Paltz that we fixed some culvert piping and all that has kept that from finding its way into our jet system. It shouldn't have. So we believe that that's part of the reason why, or not part of, but the reason why the leachate volumes are down. So keeping the price per gallon the same. There's the potential for that to increase. I don't know. We reached out to the city of Kingston and they don't have an answer for us yet. But they said there are some numbers that we won't know. We should have by October, and if it's material, we'll make those adjustments. But that's still not expected to have an effect on more tipping fees or planning fee, the budget. We have seen increases, and you'll see it in my treasurer's report and HHW costs and whatever. If they increase, say 20,000, our revenue line on the budget increases, 10,000. So 50% of those costs on the budget are covered on the revenue line. Transportation system increase, as I mentioned. So that line, instead of it going in the fuel replenishment line, I've essentially moved that because those costs are still the same. Whatever we were paying the contractor and fuel, we're still putting it in our tractor. So it's just a line item movement specifically from the fuel. When I talk about the savings, it's not included. Vehicle and equipment repairs and maintenance. It's been a while, and certainly with running our own equipment, I wanted to build in and some aging fleet that we're planning to replace. But there was some wiggle room there, I think, to add some amounts to increase our repairs and maintenance line. So I did that. Reason stated. The reason, as I already mentioned this about the Reuse Innovation Center line and the host community benefit, that will change based on volume, and it's the net effect ultimately worked out to being a decrease when you work into the volume decrease in any rating. Two towns, Ulster regions. That's it. Any questions?
Any questions, Diane?
What's the host community benefit amount? Forget.
Right. Yeah. So right now for Ulster, we are paying $2.46 per ton. And so as part of our host community agreement, it's based off July CPIs for the next year, and that'll increase to $2.56 per ton. Currently, I mean, we put our best estimate forward, based on what we proposed to the town of New Paltz, because that contract is up at the end of September, so we don't have that number, but what we put in was really with CPI with a little bit higher, just to be conservative. And I don't, do you remember what we ended up at? I don't.
I don't remember.
It was less than Ulster. I don't remember the exact.
And we're working with them, to try to, the way that their community host benefit is set up is that if we exceed certain thresholds of waste coming in, our community host benefit is higher.
Yeah.
And we don't have that in the Ulster agreement. So we're trying to bring up the baseline for New Paltz a little higher to get rid of those thresholds, because it's
It's a weird calculation.
Yeah.
And it's basically, it says that the expectation at New Paltz is we're fine with you paying us this if you're averaging 165 tons a day, but if you go up to 250, you owe us, $5 a ton on the excess.
Trying to keep traffic down,
Yeah,
or,
it's fine.
impact on the community, so. I
Yeah,
guess
it certainly helps for budgeting, even if we pay a little bit more and they get closer to the other town. New Paltz still do as much volume, but certainly from a budgeting standpoint, it helps us with costs to meet this way too.
So we will have that agreement in front of you in September, or we may have an agreement to just extend it for 3 months to get it to a calendar year. To extend the agreement while we're negotiating the new town supervisor there, so.
Tim, remind me what the debt service was. I mean, we got rid of the debt service.
Like the
a
last
couple years ago.
year,
Yeah, what's the last,
it was
what's
1.79 million.
a year?
Yeah, but the last year that we had to budget for it was 2024 budget. Our final payment was in 2025, but that was paid for a debt reserve funds. So we didn't have to.
So we have $1.79 million in debt service, so expenses that we no longer have that are. That's
Correct,
that's consumed at this point, so we spent that.
correct.
It was mainly consumed by the increase in disposal. and
Yes, same year.
The point that's gone now was a once in a lifetime opportunity, and it's consumed. Well, you're gonna go over mattresses a little bit later. Maybe I'll ask my mattress question. Are we charging currently for mattresses?
$10.
$10.
Yep, for mattress, and we're doubling it.
We've always,
This year.
we've always charged for mattresses. It wasn't just a charge in the site.
Plus a tipping fee.
Correct.
So why did we do that?
For handling is the concept. Yeah. So like for, they have, we can't just dump it on the floor and load it like. So we separately, through different locations, there's extra steps involved. That's the concept. It's the concept.
But you see where I'm coming from, just from a consumer and a ratepayer. Sounds like we're charging people twice, right? Because you charge across the scale for the item, and then you charge them again for the recycling, which isn't happening.
We don't charge them for the recycling, we charge them for the handling, and in next year's budget, we will increase it to offset the cost of the recycling, but currently you don't
Right.
offset the cost of it.
The, but like when you talk about like free on, tires that we get charges on those that cover the costs. They go out.
Oh, because there's a charge, yeah, because there's a charge from that. But the consumer, just to clarify, is charged twice for these items, right? Because we charge them going across the scale, and then we charge them in addition.
I mean, I guess you could
Am I
say that.
wrong?
I look at it as a different line item, so.
But we're charging them for disposal
You were
and for,
So if you look at it from a budget standpoint, like I would remove that. I would calculate everything the exact same way, except we probably would lose unless we added them on with zero cost, we would lose the ability to calculate. Mattresses is actually a great example. We didn't always charge for mattresses before I had taken over. the first 5 mattresses are free. We didn't charge until the 6th. So when I try to run a report for mattresses, I have no idea. So that was when we started charging for them. So it does help us track it too. But if you were to like, say, get rid of that, I would still calculate it the way I do it now, take that revenue, move it up to the tipping fee and just increase the tipping.
And landfills don't want the mattresses. They're, in fact, we don't get charged because of our contract. But Seneca Meadows, I think, is up to like, for people coming in, it's like $50, $60. It's a high, much higher than cost.
No, I mean,
We are.
I'm an advocate for the recycling of the mattresses, but they don't charge us extra for mattresses, is that correct?
Correct.
I just feel like we're double charging our customers, charging across the scale, and then another surcharge that actually really doesn't cost us anything because of that.
It does, there's an operational cost to accepting mattresses. Like sometimes we're able to just put them on top of the truck and there's not a huge impact. But if we were to take the weight of mattresses and we had to fill a truck full of mattresses, you would get much, they take up more volume in a truck than weight. And so that would cost us more money. Now,
How much are we paying for the recycling when that comes on?
For the mattresses?
Yeah.
$19.
$20, and we're passing that along to the customer.
correct.
But
I
the
don't-
scale charge that.
I
there's
don't know
no-
a transfer station that doesn't charge per items. Your town transfer stations, other municipalities, that
They
would
all
be,
charge.
would make us pretty unique.
I'm gonna ask you another question.
If I can just add that, though, they don't charge them by what, they just charge for the item,
Flat rate,
Correct.
a flat rate.
But they don't charge for weight.
They don't charge.
Period.
yeah, they have a scale, not all of them have scales. So they-
No,
they
they charge per bag.
You know,
We won't talk about
so they-
But they don't charge per weight, period. So, I mean, who knows if they charge for weight, if they would still have an additional mattress fee. I don't know that.
No, they would. They would. For handling the.
Right.
Larger items.
Well, so let me just move on to another question has to do with this, with the rate schedule, which is kind of, just because I'm along the same lines. And then I'll let somebody else ask some questions, but if I have a fluorescent lamp, the charge for that is. It's $6. It's $6. So if I bring in a fluorescent lamp, what do we do with that?
Put it off to the side.
We put it on the side and does it go to somewhere for recycling?
And yeah, for that HHW bids, right?
Yes, we use it.
Mhm.
So they get collected up and they go through your program and they're stored until that. That's good news. But if I were to bring in a lamp and go, I'd have to be scaled in to bring that lamp in. Am I correct about that?
Yes.
So, and the minimum charge is $20. And then the lamp is $6. So if I were to change a fixture that has 4 lamps in it, it's gonna cost me $46 to bring light bulbs into this facility. Calculating that right?
How many lamps?
4
They pay $24 for the lamps.
plus $20 to press it. Do you think that's fair to our customers? I mean, is that fair? Do you think we are actually gonna have people that do that? Or do you think maybe they're just gonna break those lamps and throw them in the garbage?
I mean, we collect a decent amount. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So there's something fundamental that I feel like the conversation is glossing over a little bit. You know, the way that our permit is structured with DEC as a commercial large waste facility, there is an inherent disincentive for residents and small passenger cars with like 1 bag of garbage to use this type of facility. We direct residents to their town transfer stations with small loads, and really the way that we're permitted and all the structure with our vehicle policy, we have to limit small loads, small passenger cars. So if there was a resident that only had a light bulb, we wouldn't want them to come here, right? And so part of the fee structure in a way does cover those costs for those specialty items that need additional handling. But we also counter that in that there is a free light bulb recycling program through our HHW events. And there's also multiple businesses across the county that will accept fluorescent lamps for lower fees. So if someone calls our hotline, and again, all they have is a couple mercury light bulbs, we're not gonna go through the rigmarole of how to come here. We're gonna instruct them to go to American Lamp Recycling, Eastern State Electrical Supply, Walmart Lighting, or visit their local town transfer station where they might pay a few dollars, but it'd be significantly less to come here. So similarly with other things you'll see on the fee schedule, have small ancillary charges like tires or propane tanks. Yes, the customer is going to have that minimum fee of $20 that covers the first 300 pounds of trash, and then an additional surcharge for items that cost us more to recycle them. So in a way, I just wanted to add that to the conversation because that's part of our DEC permit that we have to restrict small cars, small loads. And I think we're working to address that in other ways through the capital project plan. But for many of those items, like I mentioned, propane tanks, tires, mercury bulbs, there are genuinely other places that residents can go. Sometimes it's just a couple miles up the road where else they would go.
So that's great explanation and appreciate that. But I still gonna bring it back to, you know, it's not likely. I think there's an opportunity for us to serve our customers better by having, you know, a drop area where they don't have to go across the scale. And so I know that's part of the capital plan. It's kind of what I'm parlaying into a little bit here, but when we set up a rate structure that disincentivizes proper environmental protection, right? It's just, you know, because quite honestly, if somebody comes here with a lamp and they don't know, you know, they're not going to drive someplace else. They're just going to, you know, they're going to grow it somehow or another. And that's problematic. I mean, we do have a moral obligation to try to do the right thing. And I think that going across the scale for $20 with 300-pound minimum is just not right. You know, I don't even know why we have it set up that way. And I always think at the end of the day, like,
Requires us to collect weights, like we have to put everything scaled in and out and.
but that would not be an accurate weight then, right? So you're assuming it's 300 pounds, but it's not, it's a light bulb.
No,
Not
we
300
don't
pounds.
charge, we don't track that 300 pounds. We track whatever weight they come in. So if they have 6 fluorescent light bulbs, it's probably 2 pounds.
They wouldn't come here with 6.
I know,
That's my
but I mean,
that's my
I get,
other
yeah.
basis that we.
But if they did,
That's how we have our rate structure set up. So it leads me to believe that that's what I just fear that maybe we can serve our customers better and just have a rate schedule that doesn't have this minimum on it, or we have a collection before the scale for these types of things, or quite honestly, lamps why can't we take this for free? It's such a small impact budget. You know, I think I would be hesitant to pay $6. First of all, I don't think it costs us $6. Tim, you could tell us maybe what the actual cost of recycling a lamp is. I do not believe it's $6.
I can speak to it from someone who ran a local transfer station. It was significantly more than $8 a bulb because there's not a lot of vendors who take small amounts. And we had to package them up and ship them.
Yeah.
And when we were doing that, the shipping costs, especially when you get into the 6 and 8 foot fluorescent light bulbs, are astronomical. So the shipping cost was 3 times the cost of disposing of
Yeah,
it,
wow.
but it got built into it. So I don't know that there's many local transfer stations who are actually running fluorescent light bulbs. I could be wrong on that, but
They might be having it on their fee schedule, but you're right.
the
It's
cost
too
of
expensive.
trying to do it even on a smaller scale level than this scale is almost impossible. And I can just about guarantee the majority of customers are just breaking.
Just breaking them, which, you know, I'm concerned about from an environmental perspective. I do also collect fluorescent lamps for my employment. It is about $1. It is about $1 a lamp. So, you know, maybe I just have a better vendor, but so that's concerning to me.
I do want to highlight that something that Angelina said was that for 4 times a year, we collect these things for free. And so I think it's a fallacy to say that someone is going to have to pay $6 or $48 or they're going to break them. We offer plenty of programs that allow our residents to come and bring these type of wastes that we want to keep. out of the waste stream for free. So if they don't want to pay the $6 per volt, they can sign up for an HHW event 4 times.
Let's move on to other questions. Anybody?
Oh, yeah, I might, let me see here. Somebody else take turn.
So I just had one, Tim, and I'm sure it's in the numbers, but I didn't look specifically. Are we using anything from fund balance to offset next year's budget, or is it a straight expenses to revenue?
Straight 12 months. Book.
The move and just, we don't, I mean, we have an operating reserve, right? But we don't, it's different than
Right, but
like
we're
a
not,
county or a town fund balance.
understood, but we're not pulling from that operating reserve to balance the budget.
Because we're still not at, like, so the contract with the county, with the net service fee requires us to have a certain amount in that operating reserve.
Okay.
And we're not there yet.
Just has to. Okay.
One more?
Yeah, one question. On grants, like I see a little bit of a shift this year, which I think is better. Like we're not anticipating, we're not budgeting based on an expectation of receiving grants because it's very, very competitive. But I've just got to thinking the new grants, all these wonderful grants, we have the best grant writer on the face of the earth. But how many have we actually gotten in the past?
New grants, we've.
Yeah, new thing.
Zero, other than the technical assistance. We've never budgeted for anticipated grants. So the Climate Smart Communities grant, we've never, like, that we've applied for, or the Swiffer grants, we don't anticipate those funds and put them into the grant revenue. The change is that there was a project that we were working on that we were given a commitment of $1 million for, that commitment is gone. So we're not counting on that money, but we're saying this is a program that is important, so we don't want to remove it from the budget, but we have to find another way than our tipping fee payers or rate payers to fund it, because it's diversion in front of the scale as opposed to beyond the scale. And so that's really the shift, is like, we can't continue to charge our MSW and C&D rate payers before the scale degradation. We have to find other types of revenue, whether it's county grant, a state grant, federal grant, or a user fee, based on property-based tax, user fee. So that's the shift. That's why there's the additional 600,000 in revenue, that we won't spend that 600,000 in expenses until that 600,000 in revenue is spent. I just wanted to clarify, though, that we never have budgeted for grants. Like the grants that we do budget for are like the recycling outreach, the MWR, the ones that we will get, because they're not competitive grants. I don't want to say it upright, but they're not considered competitive grants.
I just worry that we do spend a lot of money on writing grants and, these great ideas, and then they don't come to fruition because we don't get the money and because it's very competitive. So it's concerning.
So we learn from them, right? You learn from all of your grants that you've written. You need it to benefit itself to be able to know how to do better next time, or find out why we didn't get it. And then we can have that conversation here with you.
And also, it's worth the shot. I mean, we get the money.
Be great.
So not only do we learn, but then we get the money.
I do say that, like, it helps us refine future projects that we might feel, someday, like when we've done this Climate Smart Communities grant. If we're not successful in December on this grant, I think we're probably not going to submit a fourth, right? So we're going to turn to the board and say, is this something that we should fund some other way? Because it's expansion of organics, it's bringing more food waste in so that we can compost it. Do we want to work with the town transfer stations to do this, and how are we going to fund it if this the Climate Smart grant isn't here? We'll have to answer that in the 28 budget.
Wasn't it didn't we have $1 million private equity opportunity? Whatever happened to that? That fell
Yeah, I
through,
mean,
right?
that was one of the philanthropic that we thought might come
It's
to.
gonna happen.
It's never
It
happened.
never happened.
All right, so shall we move on to the draft agency capital plan?
Sure. With that, It's constitutionally.
2684.
That's the,
Which one is it?
so that's the one.
It's a 5-year capital plan.
We got it here.
For 27, Tim, you want to go through this or?
Yeah, I mean, it's, so our capital plan, many years ago, we had the ability to make it a part of our operating budget. Because we had so much debt on the books. It would be difficult to add to it, and you look forward to like the world we live in right now. I mean, the bond markets, have taken another hit recently themselves. So if we were to try to go out the bond, it's another line item we'd be adding, we just have an item directly linked to our budget. There's a requirement in our trust indenture as well to have a 5-year capital plan. And for planning purposes, it's also a good idea to do something like this regardless. The items that are on here reviewed with operation, because a big part of it is always equipment replacement planning. Because we try to, these are harsh environments, solid waste industry that our heavy equipment is working in. So for 2027, we have a tractor and a dump trailer. And that's to replace ones that we lost last year due to an unfortunate accident. And then we're looking to get a backup tanker for hauling leak jets, so we always have a contingency plan. We currently have 2, but our tanker 1 is really, really old. We've done a lot of repair work on the tanker itself, welding and fixing and repairing. We'd like to have something safe. And then because we service the towns, this is really like a rolling equipment replacement, the same concept with the heavy equipment. So for instance, this year we should be purchasing 10 40-yard open top containers, but then we had scheduled for 2027, 10 30-yarders and 10 35-yarders, and 35-yarders are closed because they're intended for recycling. You'll see, I'm just going to stay on the same page for now. You'll see I also have our EV roll-off trucks are on here. The concept here is that because of the size of the payment and the grants involved and from NYSERDA that we'll be getting the paybacks, we would lay out the money, we essentially borrow from ourselves, and then I schedule out paying us back across our capital plan. Because it should work in line from a cash flow standpoint, we'll be getting that grant money in, so then we can, pay back our operating reserve from that standpoint. This is the planning tool for us for cash flow purposes. And underneath that, the heavy equipment you'll see scheduled out. It's noted whether it's an excavator or a loader for Ulster or New Paltz for each year. That's about 5 or 6 years out for place them. They usually have a significant amount of harsh hours on them at that point. The next thing, building the grounds administration. We had an old pickup truck that had also gotten damaged that we were looking to replace. So we had room this year. It wasn't originally on here, but we had some room in the budget, so we popped that in. And it'll be about time to replace our 2 network servers that we have. And what we do here is we actually have a main server here at Ulster, and we keep a server at New Paltz well, and they work to back up each other. So there's always a contingency plan. We do back up to the cloud as well, but it's just 2027 under the materials recovery facility, we have a skid steer loader planned, some replacement belts for 2027, and then we have some baler replacements. We have 2 balers that we utilized on our schedule for 2028 and 2029. There are times where we do, depending on how the operating budget is, we speak to the ops director, and we will push out some of these large purchases as well to see if we can make it another year.
So on that note, last year, if you were to look at the 5-year capital plan, each of these balers was moved up a year. So in the 2026 budget, we were anticipating the Mosley replacement to be 2027 and the Marathon to be 2028. We checked in with the director of operations because of the global energy project, and we don't know where we're at there. As long as he felt like we could continue to use these balers for additional years, that they weren't gonna completely fail. I wanted to push them off to give us a little bit more information, because if they build that mixed waste processing facility and they're selling regulated recyclables that they're baling, do we really need to replace both of these? So we're just pushing them off, and we'll find out.
And then the last item that I had in here was a skid steer in 2028 for a compost facility. And so anything related to recycling or composting as well, Angie will submit for the MWRR grant capital. You know, we won't get it, but you know, within say 2 years, but we should receive 50% back, and then I say nothing about for making stuff. So that's something she can do as well.
Those are those non-competitive grants as well. So both MWRR operating and MWRR capital are not competitive.
I have not seen us not pay for anything.
There was a question that came up just through, like, when I was speaking to each of you about, like, if in 2026, those numbers, whether we anticipated not moving any of this forward. So Charlie and I had a conversation today, and we anticipate that we will make all of these purchases. Now, it could be that we order it and it doesn't actually come in 2026, it comes in 27, in which case that money would go well, it would probably stay in our account, and then we would pay for it in 27.
Correct.
But we anticipate this work. And so I think there's been 37,000 spent in capital outlay so far, 35,000 as of June, when the numbers are. In the meantime, we've done the New Paltz floor repair already. We've also replaced some of the felts that were on here. So that number would be higher if we looked at July and August. We're already moving to that, specifically the 10 roll-off boxes. Those are being delivered.
Any questions on capital? Chris?
So at this point.
Will we be reviewing a capital project plan again this year?
The capital project plan will come to you in September.
So I like the fact that you're moving the balers off a little bit, because you've been kind of up in the air on that. I thought we just had a major repair.
We've had repairs on them because we have to keep them going, but this is for replacement.
There's no way to just do a refurbishment on them, or
Yeah, I mean, that's something that as we go through, we can look at that when we're looking at replacing them. But I mean, they're getting older and we're spending money on them.
Yeah, we did a major repair on the cylinder.
yeah, the ramp, right? That's what I remember.
We repacked it.
Yeah.
Several years ago. We did that.
So we do that to the extent that we feel like we can keep them going.
And we have a dedicated work mechanic that we had hired a couple of years ago, so we do a lot of maintenance.
Yeah.
Because we're not doing 50,000 tons of recycling. We run the line 2 to 3 times a week, keep them commingled and clear, so it's not heavy volume. So keeping it going by, just doing simple maintenance has extended a number of years.
Wear and tear on those for sure.
These are, like, at least one of them is original to the first MERP,
The
or
balers?
yeah,
They're both original. I don't know.
but they were
if one-
buying
I don't
different
know-
times.
Yeah, I don't know if one was installed when first started,
Or-
and one ends up going in, say, 2 years later. No problem with that. I don't know, that predates me, but.
But we've never replaced them.
Correct.
2 more quick questions. You mentioned the insurance, some damaged vehicle replacements, is insurance, are we self-insured? Why is that?
If you remember at the end of last year, we received 186,000 for those 2 losses.
Okay.
Had put us into surplus at the end of last year.
So why doesn't that reflect in the capital plan?
Because the
Doesn't
capital
belong.
plan relates to, an expense in next year. So like, I didn't have that money that came in from the insurance company at that time either, so.
It was additional.
So
But it
it's
really should offset though, the cost of those. I guess that's not.
Not from a timing standpoint, yeah, no, definitely not from accounts. We have to recognize revenues and expenses.
And also, we're not getting full replacement. It's not
No,
dollar for
stuff
dollar.
depreciates, so they're not, it depreciates and you gotta pay your stuff.
Mhm.
You could think of it as a cost, a portion of that cost did come from what came back from the insurance.
Yes.
You have any questions, Mike?
Just the one that I think you already answered. I mean, I think we've exhausted quite a few of our ideas about how to get the food waste up, and I appreciate that the idea of not charging a tipping fee and that may increase, and so. And that's been a significant change for the way we operate. Losing that volume.
Mhm.
I don't know the answer.
Such a good thing to do. I'm supportive of the food waste thing.
Yeah, no,
I think it's a great
Yeah,
way
I
to
think it's a-
encourage.
I mean, oftentimes we're asked by the municipalities to help, right? And so this will definitely help pull out for Kingston of their phase 2 of the curbside organics, because they won't be charging. And then I think that sets up a pilot for other haulers as well. If we're not charging for food waste, that means every ton of food waste that they have diverted out of their customers' MSW bins is $150 savings. I mean, they may have some operational costs, trucks and other things, but that is $150 that they're saving by not having that food waste in their.
That's the most weight of MSW.
Yeah, I just gotta get customer buy-in.
I got my bucket out at the curb today. Was really excited about that in my fridge.
Customer buy-in, and they need to have the option, which means we need more haulers too.
One last, just the EV vehicles, I feel like that's been going on for years now. When are we actually getting them?
January of 27, we were supposed to get them in August. A lot of this has to do with tariffs and other related supply chain issues.
Most vehicle purchases of that scale are 18 months to 2 years out.
EVs, but that's been what's up to do.
Yeah, this is at least tariffs.
20.
We don't pay them, right? Did we give them a deposit or did you have to
They had
pay
to
it?
put it in a spot.
Yeah, we're gonna.
You pay a portion to reserve it, and then you pay the rest on delivery. The big highway plow trucks, we used to have to wait
I don't know.
2.5
Like,
years.
revenue is tied up, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know, remember what the deposit is, remember what it is?
It was 80 grand per truck, so it was
So it's
160.
like 80 grand is, we can't use and we can't collect interest and, you know.
Well, no, that deposit, that was a paid deposit. So we had, that was 80,000, 160,000 that we paid to them.
So on to the tipping fee schedule.
Again, we've talked about the changes, but increase of $10 per mattress or box spring. Most everything else did flat. Just to answer another question on like the tarp load, in 2025, we charged 4,887 tarp fees, and in 2024 we charged 4,490. So we had 4,000, like roughly, you know, 4,000s each year.
Number of people.
Number of people who came
Number of
in,
people.
Yeah, that was my curiosity was
number
around
of,
the untarped load.
the number of unparked loads that came in. And again, we're required by the DEC to charge that, to require that loads are tarped. And then we charge a fee. I will say that's a big percentage of our confrontations at our scale house come from people being charged the tarp fee. And so that's even a modest $5 a ton per load, right? So one of the goals is that we don't have.
When we charge that money, do we have to turn it over to the DEC?
No.
Because I know they,
Permit, we're required to have tarps, and so.
because I know they would sit outside the town transfer stations, getting people on their way in with the same type of situation.
And the fines are $1,500.
Yeah.
Something like that. So along the lines of the turf fee, if you meant, if I may, I do believe $5 a load. I know you don't like the confrontation end of it is too low. I know a lot of the other transfer stations charge much more than that. I think the reason you continue to have 4,000 plus people coming in with untarped loads is because there is no deterrent. This is a very serious safety issue when people are driving down the road without tarps on, and $5 is not deterring anybody, and the numbers aren't going down, they're going up. So I do 100% think that untarped load fee should go up as a deterrent. And $5 is not a deterrent. You said the numbers went up from 4,000 to,
4,490 to 4,000.
so there's no deterrent. It might be just because you're applying it more. And this is a safety thing. It's a very serious safety thing. People die because stuff comes off of these vehicles and hits them in their minivans, causes accidents. It is a serious safety thing, and we are not helping. We are not helping.
Does the 4,000 trucks or customers, vehicles, does that apply to mostly commercial, or is it also like guy with a pickup truck?
No, that's most of it's probably the person with the resident.
With a pickup truck doesn't.
Not, I mean, the commercials are.
Pickup.
They have a
right?
thing, yeah.
Is it generally like an awareness thing, like the customer just doesn't know that that's a law?
Times
Sometimes it's that, sometimes they just don't care.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
$5.
long.
But more to buy a tarp, right? So then. So I seriously think we should be raising that. I don't believe we've ever raised this since I've been here. And the message is, it's not important. It's not important that we have our loads coming in here tarped. I think that's a disservice to the community members of Ulster County. I'm sorry.
When we're doing it, consider it when you, because this is the draft, so you can consider it if you want. But make a difference.
And see what we'll do in November.
So it's not a revenue thing. You know, you hope the revenue goes down, right? You hope there's less. And if you said that it was going down, the numbers are going down, they're not, they're going up. So there's absolutely no deterrent.
But they're holding pretty steady. But yeah, I see your point.
No, it went up 20%. There's 20% more people. 4,000. So how many is that a day?
Do we have the numbers over a period of time more than just last year? I would just be curious to see, rather than just 1 year to the next, like maybe a 5-year period, is that
You need
possible?
that, and you would need to know the number of vehicles we service
Okay, outside
outside of commercial
Yeah.
packers and.
I'm just curious because I'd hate to make a decision just based on a 1 year to year comparison.
Which I think is why the chair was asking if we would consider it and then come back with something in November.
Yes, but for us to be able to consider it,
We'll provide information.
I would want more data, I guess is what I'm asking for.
We'll do that research.
That's 20 vehicles a day at least. 20 vehicles a day coming here on target.
Well, as we finish up this budget workshop, I just want to commend Tim, Mark, and the staff, because this, from the way the budget was presented to us as the board online, was a very clear document, a lot of, facts. I'm not great playing with computers, but I was able to navigate it very easily. Which, it says something, because obviously you put some thought into how to present it to the board and to the public. And then beyond the presentation, the numbers, it's a tough time to run an agency. And we managed to bring in a budget that is responsible and tending toward progressive, depending on how things break. And that's not an easy, needle to thread. And so really both of you and the rest of the staff who contributed to it, Angie, I know you were involved in it, everybody, all your department heads, pass it along. This is a budget that I feel is really something the agency can be proud of, and I congratulate everybody who put it together. I know it's not finalized yet and we'll be tweaking it, but overall, so far, I'm very, very happy with what we're getting.
Can I add that I am really appreciative. I mean, we have a meeting for the meetings anyway, Mark, but it was very additionally clarifying. But I mean, Tim, the way that you gave us our explanations, I mean, it made it so that I didn't have to really come with those questions because I understood where the numbers were. So.
And I'll clarify, because I haven't talked, not everybody, we didn't have meetings this month with everybody because of different things that they were set, but in the tab that especially, so while you go back to the next 2 months before we pass the actual final budget, if you go to the Excel spreadsheet that was provided to you and go to the tab that says actuals, if you hover over any colored cells, there's an explanation on where the costing changes. If you haven't noticed that in your review.
Board members have anything else before we move on? Okay, so our next item on the agenda is a presentation on the 2026 goals.
I don't have a visual presentation and an update this month. We have, for the last couple of months, mostly with Angie's leadership, been working on the biennial update, which is an opportunity for us to review progress on the 2024 and 2025 implementation plan from the local solid waste management plan. And so we've been working through that with the directors. We now have, I would say, about 95% completion on updates from all of the goals that were stated in the original solid waste management plan and then updated in our last two biennial updates. So all of the activities from 24 and 25. Those will be included when we submit that final local solid waste management plan biennial update, which is due in October, the 1st of October. I think the plan is to share that with the board in advance so that you can have visibility on that biennial update, and you'll see in that the full update on all the actions and goals from the implementation plan.
We're actually submitting on September 18th. So our goal is to get it to you by September 1st, minus the implementation table, because we're still working through it for future implementation. By September 8th, we'll send you that implementation table. And then we ask for any comments back on the 15th. Again, this is not a report that gets a resolution and is approved by the board, but we want you to see it and read it. So there's about a 2-week period. And then because of having another thing, we're submitting it on September 18th. We actually have a meeting with the DEC, I think on the 15th or 14th. We found that it's more successful when we do a pre-meeting with them and kind of explain what we're doing. So we're doing that. And then we'll have a day or two for your comments, and then we'll put everything together and submit on the 18th.
So that's been the majority of the work on the goals, is really just using that as a way to update the implementation plans. We're meeting with the directors on Thursday next week as part of that process that Mark just described, in addition to the updates that I've already got from directors on the goals that were for 24 and 25. Now we're looking at the goals that we had originally set in the local solid waste management plan for 2026 through 29, the end of the 10-year planning period. And at our meeting next Thursday, we'll be asking the directors for updates and changes to those that we can also reflect in our submission to DEC. And then all of that will go into our updated mission goals and performance plan, which we had shared with you last year, and we'll share again with you. I think we're targeting next month's board meeting.
September will be a bigger goals update with that work done, with visuals and other things. This was just a quick update.
Because we're midstream.
Honestly, we're working on this biennial update, and like that's where a lot of the time is going right now.
So yeah.
My question is.
Yep.
Is it working?
Yes, but it's been incredibly challenging to have a 10-year solid waste management plan with goals that were set way back in 2020 and that we periodically update on a biennial basis, and then trying to introduce kind of a new process. And so, we've talked, I think I sound a little like a broken record, but I think it's just a reflection of it takes time to kind of sync all these things up. We are still in the syncing process, but I think my goal is that by the end of this year, as we move into 27, which again, is getting us close to the end of our 10-year solid waste management plan, we're in a position where now the goals that are showing up in our local solid waste management plan match the things that are in our agency goals document. And so they're all one thing. And we have, this year, we purchased a license to a product called ClearGov, which I've started using, and that will be our tool going forward next year to do everything from updates to you all on the progress towards goals and updates as part of our next biennial update to DEC. And so it'll all be coming from one source.
Is it available to the public, like a summary?
There's
Like,
dashboards that
Yeah.
dashboard.
We can choose which things we want to expose to kind of public views and which ones we want for internal views. So we'll be refining that over the course of next year to see what we want to share and which form.
The reason we went with ClearGov is there was a public dashboard.
Great, thank you. I mean, we've all known it was very complicated. It's nice to see it moving along and paying off too. Okay, general reports, committee and official meeting reports by board members. I'll start with this and I'll let Mark add on. After a lot of trying, we were able to meet with the county executive last week. I guess we spent about 45 minutes. Mark presented the budget and our point of view. And I presented the fact that, you know, we are an agency who's always run a tight ship and we appreciate whatever assistance the county can give in either providing us with revenue or helping us have the avenues that we need to raise our own revenue. We usually, you know, on the property tax or some mechanism that we are entitled to use as long as we have county clearance that will allow it to go through the state legislature. So we're not going to get any money from the county. That was made plain, although exactly why was never explained. And I would say we had a not quite sympathetic hearing about what about us raising revenue, but certainly no commitment to say, oh yes, we're going to help you do that. So I left the meeting with an impression that the executive and our staff had a better understanding of what we're trying to do. But certainly I was a little bit frustrated by the lack of, well, yeah, commitment is a good word, by the lack of, by the lack of any concrete thing that I could take back to the board and say, yeah, this is what we're going to do, or that Mark or Tim could use for planning purposes. We're still in the uncertain stage with that. We reviewed the preliminary ideas, the 4 things that the board will consider, 4 ways to proceed with NRG. And there was an understanding of that, and I would call it tacit support without actually coming out and saying anything. There was, certainly we didn't get pushback. Oh no, you can't do that. And so, essentially, in my mind, I left the meeting thinking, well, it's pretty much status quo. Mark may have other thoughts on it that he wants to share, but that was, that was where I left the meeting.
I don't.
Yeah. So with that, unless you have a committee meeting, and you have a committee meeting, right? First.
No, you.
All right. Sure. Yeah, Zero Waste Committee met, was it 2 weeks ago? On Thursday, and had a very, I think, good discussion, lots of good engagement from the members that attended. Mark gave a really good update to educate the committee on the difference between also the UCRRA's responsibility for the planning unit, which is similar, but also different from the responsibility of managing the waste stream that we comes for tipping floor, which helped, I think, bring everybody on the same page as to what the Zero Waste Committee should be focusing on, which is the delivering or the creation of a set of initiatives that we will continue building. So we have 14 initiatives that we discussed that individual members of the committee had developed. The idea is to continue refining and shaping these initiatives into something that we can bring to the board and or I can bring in December to recommend that we add into our planning for the local solid waste management plan. A lot of the ideas were grounded in the transfer stations, the MRDCs, and how we can better utilize that as a system to mitigate waste before it even comes to our tipping floor. So I think a lot of the focus of this committee is going to shape in that direction. How can we better utilize that infrastructure? So we're continuing to refine these cards. There's been some ideas of touring some facilities, both in the county and outside the county, to broaden all of our awareness of different techniques and things around composting as one example. So it was a good meeting. I think we're continuing to bring that committee into alignment on what the objective is, which is the bringing of initiatives to the local solid waste management plan. And how we get there is continuing to be a collaboration. So it's good.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you.
I went to the recycling oversight committee this week. It was a really good meeting. Erin, the chair, brought us through a process that she would like to follow for a lot of different materials. We took a look at the 21 to 24 waste characteristic report. It was great. We understood some of it and there were a lot of questions about the rest of it. And so Erin took, and we looked at glass in this meeting. So I'm not gonna go through the questions because Aaron and I are gonna take our scribbles, our questions and put them together and then get them to Mark. So that y'all, when we come to an October meeting here, for a tour and a presentation, we can give you the heads up and that committee, some of those questions answered. But it was a really lively meeting.
The 21 to 23 characterization, you're talking about the Stony, you're talking about the Stony
Yep.
waste characterization.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions?
Recycling came out of that recycling oversight committee. So that's where that was driven from. So it can definitely make change.
Okay, the recycling program update. Angelina?
July, the recycling outreach team led 4 community workshops. We hosted 2 facility tours here and participated in 2 community events in partnership with the Highland Seniors Club, Wraparound Services, School of Achievement, Town of Ulster Library, ARCAL with the Resource Center for Accessible Living, Sustainable Hudson Valley Clean Power Expo and Picnic. And we also attended Radio Kingston's Midtown Make a Difference Day. The staff continues to conduct consultation services about festival waste recycling. We've continued to work with the Rosendale Street Festival, the Friends of the Woods Library, High Falls Food Co-op, New Paltz Garden for Nutrition, and the Ulster County Ag Society during the month of July. So it's pretty busy, focused on those 8 events and then all the bin rentals that we had. We're working on a new community spotlight video on the Rosendale Street Festival. So you can stay tuned and look forward to that. And we're hoping that by showcasing a really strong example, it can be a model for other events that want to try going zero waste. So we're working on that. But all in all, the 8 outreach programs in the month of July collectively reached 119 adults and 112 children through 20 hours of direct face-to-face education. The program, however, I would like to highlight a little bit more for you this month is one of our lesser known services that we do, which are site visits. While some board members might have some familiarity with that service, I just wanted to share a quick kind of high level overview about the example that I provided in your report. So our staff is available to assist institutions and facilities and schools and businesses with free professional consultation services to improve their recycling programs, implement composting, or look at other waste reduction strategies. So any facility in Ulster County can contact us wanting to get their employees to utilize their recycling bins more, or maybe they have an interest in learning other things they could be recycling. Cost is often a factor. Businesses are interested in how can they reduce their waste disposal costs by recycling, composting more. Or again, sometimes we're reached because a facility may be seriously considering composting and just needs a lot of that logistics help. So site visits allow us to really spend some time with these people and understand facility operations, their staffing, what their goals are. We evaluate their current waste practices and then share specific recommendations. The site visits usually involve a facility walkthrough, interviewing different staff about the business, making observations, taking photos. It's not a full waste sorting audit. It's a little more of a soft audit in that way, noting things like the number of stations, bin placement, signage, and again, just overall practices. A handful of these in my time here, I've worked with the Orpheum Movie Theater, which is upstate Belms, RBW Lighting Studio, Keep Candle Manufacturing Studio, the Bearsville Center, Gardner Bakehouse, and a few others that really show a diverse range of businesses that end up wanting to learn more and get consultation help. So this year we were contacted by a representative of Hutton Brickyards who facilitates their field and supply events. They were specifically looking for ways to cut costs by trying to recycle as much as possible, almost ready to consider adding composting to their event. So the staff attended the festival. We documented our findings on our walkthrough and then delivered the final report, which was included for you. And I think that wanted to show you this. I was encouraged by Mark to show you this type of work because It's only one aspect of our outreach service, but I think it has a very positive impact overall as compared to some of our other efforts like tabling and doing classes and visiting schools. Even though the audience is smaller, right? Sometimes we're only dealing with one individual, not reaching, 100 people through the work, but the depth of the experience and the educational value is so much deeper. You're doing a tour, having a phone call, or whatnot. But with that said, these site visits take significant staff resources, easily like 10 to 15 hours of staff time between, again, all the interviews, doing the walkthrough, typing up the report, doing the debrief, follow-up calls, et cetera. But as our recycling outreach team continues to grow, I think it's a really wonderful service. So we do 1 or 2 of these a year. We would love to see us do more if we had more resources to do that. And I think the goal is we continue to build a library of these case studies so that we can have a basis to approach other similar businesses, whether that be a movie theater, a festival, a candle store, whatever, so that they have some great tips. So I'm excited by the work. I want to take the opportunity to share more about that. And yeah, you can read more about our marketing, our outreach efforts in the packet. Happy to help answer any questions.
Just have a quick one. I think that's really cool. Being able to go and consult and be in the businesses with people. I agree with you. That's face to face is the best way to engage. And then you create somebody that can go share it elsewhere. I'm wondering, it sounds like a lot of the demand is inbound. So they're coming to us and asking for help. And you guys are being consulted and going out. Do we follow up with them like a year later to see, like, did you implement what we suggested? Is it creating benefits? Any of that?
Some of them have been really enthusiastic to stay involved with us. I think a couple that I've done have been more hesitant to make some of the changes. That's a great prompt. It is important to get that closure at the end to make sure that the time spent there was, very meaningful beyond just the reports. Appreciate it. It's next.
Were you able to help save money?
So the unique thing about this particular case study that we did, their event happens twice per year, in the spring and in the fall. So we will have an opportunity to see if they implement what we're recommending and then get. So that's still to come.
Right, because if we can trumpet that I think will help in and of itself if recycling is restoring money. Yeah. So thank you for the work on that.
Absolutely.
Any other board members, questions for Angelina?
No, but I don't know who I had mentioned it to. So Meat Wagon had an unfortunate accident of some sort and they had all this product that they had nothing. I don't know how they got in contact with UCRRA, but they put a post out and they were really grateful that there was somewhere to bring that to. And I thought it was a really great just moment where people can learn about the agency. Like I was like, I saw that the agency had commented. So it's just like the more people that know about us, the better. And while it was unfortunate for Meat Wagon, I think it was really a good opportunity for people to know more about the agency.
Great, thanks.
Left, I cried.
Right, well, and now we go on to the MSW tonnage report.
You guys still want me to keep talking?
Do you have water?
So for the month of July, C&D continues to decrease month after month. So we were under budget on MSW by only 38 tons, but we were under budget on C&D by 762 tons. Majority of our bottom number that we're under budget of 3,143, almost 3,000 of that is related to C&D. Hence why we made the adjustment to our budgeted C&D tonnages. So that's about 4%, which still leaves us expecting around 130,000 tons for the year. So no change from that standpoint. The recycling tonnages, we did creep up a little bit on food waste. Two of our bigger haulers brought a little bit more, most of which was organics that we speak about. They actually brought us 30 more in July. Then they brought us in June, and then we did some grinding for the town of Congo. We got wood chips that came in with 199.54 tons. Everything else still has been staying pretty consistent. The MRF, our MRF cost center analysis. Month of June, we had tipping fees, which as I told you last month, there was a line item that I had added for any contamination related fees. So we charged the gate rate for that on $1,109. Our sale of recyclables, we didn't only sold 275 ton of recyclables, most of which was fiber. Most all was fiber, so 20,065 on that. So our total revenues is 21,174. MRF residual T&D and our glass recycling total 10,028, which gave us net revenue on our commodities of 11,146. Total personnel and operating expenses, nothing out of the ordinary to speak of, was a total of 39,569. So we gave us a net loss 28,423. So our year-to-date net loss is $160,024. And then $61.86 from the year was in the tipping fee we would have had to charge per ton on any incoming cycling. I already mentioned the markets. Markets have seen a slight uptick on fiber, which is where it was trending. And that's expected to continue through all of next year, which is why some of the film cycle loans in the budget. Not the treasurer. For the month of June, no revenue line items of note. We did 2,200,202 total revenue. Personnel, our HHW went from June was 56,549. Our total operating expenses for the month is 1,930,701, which gave us net operating revenues of surplus for the month of 261,501. Our year-to-date surplus is 768,090. Any questions on any of that?
Where's the surplus from again? I think you explained it, or somebody explained. There's a specific reason why we have that, because we didn't spend it on something.
Well, so there's two items that we haven't spent it on. Again, the 804,000 that was budgeted for net operating, or sorry, not operating. 895,000 in capital outlay. We've only spent 35,000 on year to date, but we do anticipate
Spending it down.
spending all of it essentially. And then the RIC has not been like, we have not, that was $502,000 that was budgeted for last year that we got not spent. Or have not spent it today.
So we're not gonna spend that, right? The other capital we're gonna spend. And then Tim, you said in your budgeting, the anticipated surplus is 50,000. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
So that's anticipated, or I mean, that anything could change. Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that, right?
We could see a further decline in revenue. We could see in volume, we could see an increase in volume, which would mean the surplus would be larger.
Does that surplus account for the money not spent on the RIC? Is that in there?
For next year? No, because for next year, 27, we're doing the revenue line, so we want, it's not.
Thank you. Any questions?
No.
Okay. All right, so I'll accept the motion then to approve the treasurer's report.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, all in favor of approving the treasurer's report as delivered?
Right?
Opposed? Okay, thank you, Tim. And the executive director update.
Walk through, so stakeholder meetings. August 5th was a big day about the Beyond Plastic Working Group. There was a lot of discussion centered around restaurants and food waste, what was working, what needed improvements. To skip the straw law and compliance enforcement of that law. Also a recommendation around bans related to clamshells and black plastic. I don't know, Chris, if you want to add anything.
You're good.
Okay.
I was there.
And then the Energy, Environment, and Sustainability Committee with the legislature, I just presented our budget, our draft budget. And there was no major questions. There was a few clarifications that they asked that.
They were happy to see the tipping fees were going to stay flat.
So I've completed the Cornell Center for Health Equity Racial Allyship training. It was, I think, a very worthwhile course. I would recommend it. Buddy? Dust flow control violations, those have gone out, that were discussed last month. Compost, we resumed bulk compost sales. We sold 270 tons between July and August. We currently have 141 tons. So it is possible that we will see that stockpile run out mid-September if we continue on the same pace. Mattress recycling, the contractor is coming tomorrow morning, do contamination training with staff. And we anticipate that that will be back up and running next week, starting Monday after that training. Global NRG, I say in this update that I'm going to request that the board at least, I don't know that it needs to be a resolution, but if I could get some kind of direction from the board, whether it's consensus to go in one of the 4 options, I'll send you the updated cost proposal from Global Energy. We will then use the 40 hours from the National Lab of the Rockies to make sure that that is a feasible option. They will help us with contract language, and then also we want to work in kind of as it's in Global Energy using that technical assistance. So they may identify anaerobic digesters regionally that they could, offtake the organics to. They may recommend something else, but I think we need to keep it involved in anaerobic digestion in some way because they are they were NREL, the National Renewable Energy Lab. So they are renewable energy related. I think they're interested in the organics piece because to see what happens with these organics that have gone through thermal hydrolysis and how that is supposed to increase the ability of it to be anaerobically digested.
So in September, before September, you'll send us the updated price list so that the board can prepare. And then we'll discuss it at the board meeting. And we don't anticipate needing a resolution, just
a consensus of the board so I can move forward. Because remember, you will by resolution approve the contract. But this will allow Global Energy to move forward with design of that specific option.
And it'll allow the feds to assess it for us.
Correct.
Can I ask with that, Mark, that you or the staff, you and Tim combined, make a recommendation from your perspective of those 4?
Yep.
To at least get us a starting point?
Yes, I will. I'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you.
When is the feds, when are they gonna, January though, right? Is that
No,
always
well,
their-
we were told that end of summer, early fall, they would reach back out to us to do a kickoff. And then that work would be post that kickoff meeting. We have not heard back actually. So Hudson Valley Regional Council, who we're working with, they submitted an application and they have heard back from the National Lab of the Rockies to set up a kickoff meeting that I'm also going to attend with them as well. And that's looking at a regional approach for some.
And if I remember, it's 40 hours worth of assistance. So if they start in the fall, we could have the information and probably take it quickly.
Yeah, find out what their information is so that we don't say the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's technical assistance related to our project. Right, is that what they're holding?
So Repower, Rick, again, we're not searching for a hub at this moment because we don't have a long-term funding plan. So we need to find revenue for that. But we still have a reuse coordinator and we're still having them do work. So he and I met with the town of Gardner. They have a trailer at their MRVC that needs to be replaced. They're interested in working with us to put a Tioli shed on site, and then we would provide them with basically a 2-room shed, and that would be a little larger than what we would look to provide for just a Tioli shed, and they would offset the cost to the agency for that additional work. I think it's a great way to have a mutually beneficial. We get the Tioli shed up. They are planning to operate it. they're happy to do so, at least based on what our plan is. And then they have a side office that would be built, for cheaper than it would be to replace their insurance.
Which I'm ready to see with that.
Town's partner.
Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah, and Kevin is also working through some documents that are like SOPs and best practices for these town transfer station operators. So that they know what to accept. I mean, the way Gardner is looking at doing it, because they do this now. Right now, if somebody wants to donate something that they think could be reusable, the operator down there takes a couple of their tickets that they use coupons, which is what they use for disposal. So like a bag of trash will be like a coupon or two. So he'll take a coupon. And then if it gets donated and somebody else comes and reuses it, great. Otherwise, they still get the revenue from it. And so if it ends up being put in the trash, the town doesn't lose anything. We would anticipate that they would roll out the TLE shed the same way, especially if there was question on whether the item was really reusable. Because that's the one thing we have to convince the towns, it's like that they're not going to lose money here. Because if they accept something and it just sits and that ends up in their container, we're going to charge them for it.
One way Rochester is handling that is if it's questionable at all, but the person really wants to donate it, they'll charge them for if it was to be disposed of. And that way it's already covered if they have to dispose of it eventually. So as many people are willing to do that, they have this great item that they think somebody may want, but in reality, nobody wants it.
Yeah, sorry. I was focused on how I was saying coupon. That's the same thing in what Gardner is doing. They don't take cash. People buy these ticket books.
Yeah.
And then
Switching it up.
Well, we do the same thing.
We get it.
We do punch, but
Right.
it's essentially.
so they would
No,
still
no,
charge them money. Yes.
Yeah.
When big reuse opens up the hub, assuming that project goes forward and these towns have DOA shed, and then big reuse will go out and, take things back to the hub in order to, partner with us in that program. I think there would be an expectation that towns would stop charging it. As long as they're following our guidelines for donation, because the idea is it's a donation. Right? So once we have or our contractor has the responsibility of cleaning out the sheds. That's
It's a whole different story.
So the town doesn't get charged.
That doesn't, right.
So remind me how much each town is being allocated for the TOE sheds.
Yeah, so we're rolling this out slowly. We're trying to deal with early adopters. We believe there will be some surplus based on not spending the repower project money, right? The TOA sheds that we've priced out to date are somewhere between $10,000-$11,000. The one that Gardner's looking at is about 13.
More because of the.
So we charge them 3,000. They would cover 3,000, we cover.
But any town, in a rolling basis is going to be theoretically allocated $10,000 for a TOE shed, and we're going to help them get that set up.
Yeah, we're not gonna pay them. We'll try to get we're gonna bid it, or we've gotten 3 quotes now. So we would price it out. We would provide them with the shed. They would need to put a
Pad.
Yeah, they would need to put a pad. If they want it insulated, they would have to do that. They would have to put any electric in. It's just the shell for 10,000.
How did Gardner get selected?
At the last town supervisors meeting, I asked all of the town supervisors that were there if anyone was interested in being an early adopter of this program. So,
But the budget allows for all of them to get this, right? Because it's part of our program. Or not?
no, we don't have that. I mean, this was not originally in the 26 budget. What was in the 26 budget was 400,000 for, actually at the time, 300,000 for utilities and 200,000 subsidy towards the operator. So there was $502,000 there. I I doubt at the end of the year, we're gonna have a $500,000 surplus. It just depends on how future months are. But as we work through it, and towns, I would say we would probably get to 3 or 4 towns this year.
What if you have like this huge demand and how are you gonna fairly and equitably distribute that to the different towns?
We have, I mean, we work one at a time to get these up and running. We don't want to just like, even if we could, I don't think we want to establish 19 TLE sheds at once. We want Kevin to be able to train and work with them, provide them the documentation, provide the shed to one town, and then move on.
And then I think it's worth noting that if I remember correctly, and I'm pretty sure I do, that program was originally going to be at least partly funded, and if not entirely, by the county money that was promised to us. You know, the county promised us this money and we said, all right, we'll pass it along to the towns. It seemed like a really good way of doing things. And now, so the county has backed away. And so now we're going to have to, you know, pay as we go. I have every confidence that we're going to be able to do that. But it's unfortunate that the county, for whatever reason, is not putting their money where their mouth is.
We should probably attend their budget meetings next year and try to get, or this year, and try to get it back in next year's budget.
And if the towns want that, they can approach the county. Like, you know, I mean, I would love for the towns to step up to the county and say, hey, you have to assist with this program. The RRA is doing something good to benefit everybody, the towns, the residents, the environment, the economy. And that's one of the reasons I'm so disappointed the county supports it verbally, but it doesn't seem to take the next step. So if they, I'd love to see us have a log jam with the towns because that would help us professionally.
You know, Erica, there's a county legislative representative on the recycling oversight, correct?
Ann Peters.
Maybe we can work through her to try to just bring this.
I don't think the recycling oversight is the right
Okay.
mechanism. I mean, there is one on
recycling.
It's reuse.
Okay.
So, I mean, but there is one on the zero waste committee. I also go monthly to energy
Okay.
and environment.
Okay.
But
I'm good.
going to the energy and environment committee as board members might be helpful, and encouraging the towns to go to that committee because that's where it's going to get funded.
Okay,
That's where the balls start rolling.
that's fine.
And I think, and Legislator Peters is a great probably advocate for these kind of things. And, you know, we'd like to hear from town, but not, you know.
One quick question. What size are those sheds or products?
The one that we're providing to Gardner is 24 by 12. So the idea is that like, it would be 14 by
Mhm.
12 and 10 by 12 for the office space, 14 by 12 for the TLE shed. Small, you think? or-
Small,
Yeah.
Well, if you get furniture,
yeah, too
it's
small.
filled up.
So
we can.
we were looking at 36, 32 by 12. They don't, it's not gonna fit the pad that Gardner
It's fine.
wants.
You just need to pick up regularly then.
They do lean to, I could come up with some.
Well,
other
this is
ideas.
not, remember, this, until we get the repower hub and spoke system up, this is going to be a independently operating
I
fueling.
get it.
So that if they have items that aren't going, they're gonna need to clear them out and put them into their containers.
Got it.
So let's give you a chance to finish out your, you have just 2 more items on your report.
I think we already kind of,
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't cut you off.
I'm good.
Okay, good. All right.
Happy to answer the question.
Any of our board members have any questions for Mark?
Patrick's Recycling is 100% gonna start next week. 100%.
You know, I don't know that we're saying 100%.
You gonna wait for the
But,
next one?
you know,
I didn't wager on
We-
it. One of them.
as long as the contractor shows up tomorrow, does the contamination training, then we will be ready to go on Monday. Dave, we're scheduled this week.
Just a request, I think next, we had said we were gonna have Robert come like 4 times a year. But I think next month might be 3 months, so, and I don't know, you know, especially being the budget meeting, might be a good with that.
When is the hearing officer seeing folks next year? Month.
Next month is the 25th.
Remember,
So I wonder if he comes in.
26.
Well, we're gonna be meeting on the 24th, so that.
Oh.
And it really isn't probably him reporting back on that, it's myself or me.
And also
Isn't it
leave
the
it up to,
24th, right? Isn't that what we said?
yeah,
The next meeting is the
Yeah.
24th.
and also, when you put the, request out to Robert, if there are reasons that are important to him that he can't make it, and we put it to October, that's okay.
Sure.
I mean, we'd love to see him in September, but if he can't make it.
I mean, I just, from his report, I just have a whole bunch of questions. So
Okay,
Okay.
I mean,
it's not,
Happy to,
It's fine.
you email me or him and
it's fine.
Get the
Yeah,
answer
yeah,
as well.
I'll just. Every once in a while.
And on to the resolutions. Resolution 2679, authorizing and approving the purchase of a Caterpillar skid steer loader. I'll entertain a motion for discussion purposes.
Make that,
Second.
Okay. Any discussion, any questions from board members regarding this?
Yeah, so, thank you for last month, you provide us a little bit of a narrative on why this particular brand cost was desired by the agency. However, what I was looking for was an economic analysis, and I was looking for a more due diligence in terms of looking at other brands. A skid steer can range anywhere from 39,000 up to 110,000. We're at the very top of that, and I see it for next year as well. And I really don't think that the agency did their due diligence at looking at other things. I know it was off the bid list. I get that. I know it's a more durable piece of equipment. It's not a cheaper end item. But I still think with the economic times, and the stretching of the budget, and the very small margin we have operating, that we should be doing an actual financial evaluation of big purchases like this.
I mean, we do those evaluations, and we've worked with a lot of different pieces of equipment. We find that these give us the best value based on longevity of the equipment for the cost. They're not the most expensive pieces. There's other brands like Kabuto and others that are more expensive, so we're not buying the very cost. We are, it may be a rung below, but again, we have to decide